Craig here on the third floor, and we're talking Neverborn with Patrick Kirby and Sam Newman. So 3rd edition got us a brand new Neverborn master, and he's pretty unique. So talk to me about Euripides.
Well, Euripides is the master of the giants who have come down from the north, and this crew is all about ice pillars.
Okay.
So they are kind of our version of Rasputina, except I think they might even be more ice pillar focused than Raspi is in some ways.
So if I have never played against Euripides, I know I'm going to get ice markers. How is he using those ice markers?
So a lot of people have called them bowling with ice markers, and they're not entirely wrong. So Euripides is himself and Cyclops are putting ice pillars out. There's other ways of getting more ice pillars out of some corpses. Euripides can throw pillars in any direction and deal for simple move duels against anybody who gets hit. And then they take damage if they fail.
Nice.
He has all sorts of fun triggers on those. He can put out multiple pillars at a time with his main pillar creation technique. Mm-hmm. And the rest of the crew manipulates pillars in all sorts of fun ways. And unlocking the crew is all about figuring out which models in the crew manipulate pillars in what ways.
In the ways you need.
Thune's all about bringing pillars towards you. Gurion's all about shoulder rushing at pillars and sending them out. Everybody manipulates it in a slightly different way, and mastering that puzzle is mastering Euripides.
Yeah, and it sounds like that's going to take some practice, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So how about defensively? What's keeping Euripides alive?
So Euripides, he's big, he's bad, but again, he's big. So he's 5'6", defense willpower, but again, like all of his stuff, he's 50 millimeters.
Right.
So your ranged attacks are going to see him, but thankfully he has all these ice pillars to hide behind. So he does gain concealment from that. He gets a little bit of protection there. He does have hard to kill, so that's always good.
It's a big deal.
Gets to stick around a little bit longer. His defensive trigger, it's also defensive willpower, is a little interesting. Future sight. So on a tome, it's not built in, but if you defend with the tome, you get to declare a suit. When you declare that suit, your opponent then reveals their hand. Anything that matches that suit gets deleted, tossed in their discard pile.
Nice, okay.
So, Rezzers declare crows,
yeah.
Neverborn declare mass,
Arcanists, tomes. Nice.
You can really ruin somebody's day.
I bet. Especially, I would imagine, going against a summoner, because you know what kind of, the high suits that they're going to be been keeping in their hands from turn to turn. So it may not keep them alive, but it sounds like it would have a huge impact on them. How about his totem?
So his totem, the Primordial Magic, it's got definitely an upgrade since 2nd edition. It's now significant. It can really helpfully for them. Everybody's 50 millimeter base. It has an action to hand out incorporeal, so they can move wherever they want.
Cool. Any other key things we should remember about Euripides?
Well, with the Primordial Magic, in addition to those other things, it has the ability to cleanse markers from nearby ice pillars. Mm-hmm. And it has the much wanted Arcane Reservoir. It's our only access to it in faction. So when you're playing Euripides, as long as the totem is out, you're playing with a 7-card hand.
That's nice.
You also mentioned, earlier, Euripides is definitely about creating those pillars, manipulating those pillars. But let's not forget, he has a huge fist. He will punch the ever-living daylights
so he's
out
a
of
damage
dealer.
dealer.
Oh, yes.
Gotcha.
I mean, the entire keyword as giants hit exactly the way that you would expect giants to hit. They are all big, beefy, plus-size chunk monsters, but if they can close the distance to you, it's going to hurt.
So what kind of player would enjoy playing Euripides?
Somebody who likes puzzles, who likes kind of a clockwork mentality, because not only do you need to know which ice pillars you want to both create or move around in a certain manner, activation order is huge, because not only do you need to know when you want them, but everybody's a 50 millimeter base. It's so easy to block yourself in either from your own models or off a terrain.
May not be a good beginner master.
It'd be tough.
Yeah.
There'd be a lot of losing games.
Okay.
I mean, additionally, as part of the Puzzle Master thing, both Euripides and his henchmen have intuition. So when they activate, they're looking at the top 3 cards of their deck and putting them back in any order. And then there is the big faction keyword ability, which is the Old Ways. Mm-hmm. The Old Ways says that you can, anytime you have an unmodified duel, so you don't have any positives or negatives to it, you can take 1 point of damage and take the top card from your discard pile and just use that instead of flipping off the top of your deck.
Very nice.
After you do that, that card goes to the bottom of your discard pile, so you can't just keep using it. But a lot of Euripides becomes how to best use the old ways to not overly damage yourself and get the most effect out of it. A lot of the crew is doing things like discarding for one ability or discarding for another ability with the intention that you're just going to old ways that card off the top of your discard pile and then reuse it that way. And because of that, the crew's second keyword ability on most of their models, but notably not Euripides, is Frozen Vigor. If they end their activation within 2 inches of an Ice Pillar marker, then they gain Shielded 1 and Heal 1.
Oh, okay. All right, that's Euripides. So Euripides is my master. I've got the whole Savage keyword. What's the first model, Sam, you bring in?
I don't ever foresee myself not bringing the henchman.
Okay.
Thune.
Okay.
Thune is pretty great. Just like Euripides, he has the old ways. He has intuition, so you're seeing the top of your deck when you activate him. Also, when Thune activates, you have a very important ability, which is you can move any ice pillar that's within 3 of you 3 inches in any direction.
Oh, wow.
So, ice pillar placement is very, very important in this crew. Everything you do is almost through ice pillars. Euripides himself can teleport through an ice pillar. So very important to have those exactly where you want them. Thune just moves them there.
Is he also a damage dealer, just like we're seeing?
Pretty good damage track. It's 2, 4, 6, and what the big buzz I think is going to be about is the tome trigger that's on that main attack, which is Frozen Trophy. After successfully spotting the tome trigger, after succeeding, any model you hit with it, including a master, gets buried, and an ice pillar marker is placed into base contact with them, and they do not unbury until you break the marker or use another ability that you happened to bring that lets you unbury.
Oh, wow. That could be a huge deal.
So Terra doesn't care, but somebody else who can't, isn't full of unburial stuff,
sure,
they're just going to sit off the side of the table until that marker goes away. But, oh wait, I can just move this marker over here.
Right, he's got all the movement tricks.
Absolutely. So Thune can lock people down into pillars, and then you can break those pillars open later when you need them for something. So if you scored your first part of Deliver a Message, you can safely store away that master in a pillar and then break him out at the end of the game when you need him.
Very cool.
It's a pretty crazy trigger. I think we're going to be hearing a lot about it.
It sounds like that's worth spending the stone for.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Thune also has a ranged attack that lets him pull a model towards him, and also can target a ice pillar within 8 inches and pull the ice pillar towards him. If the ice pillar is interrupted by an enemy model, there's a trigger that then lets him basically billiards the model into Thune. So
nice.
You knock the ice pillar into the model, then the target gets knocked into Thune.
We kind of talked about this not necessarily being an easy keyword to play, but having seen it on the board and now that we're talking about it, sounds like a fun one.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. It sounds fun. So what are some Savage models you like to bring in?
So everything's new for him, right? One of the unreleased ones, the Garion, I don't know how to pronounce it, but they are the mutated Gigants. They are 2-headed, weird-limbed. If this was Sparta, they would have been thrown in the pit.
Okay.
But they grew up huge, and they are nasty in melee. They will crush the heck out of everything. And with their ice pillar manipulation is the shoulder rush. So they push 6 inches, and if they run into an ice pillar, it moves as far as they move.
6-inch push is good.
Oh, yeah. And then if that ice pillar then runs into something else, now that's another move action or take damage.
Nice. So I'm hearing a lot of damage being done. I'm hearing a lot of manipulation. Who's running schemes?
Well, there's a couple scheme runners. The Boltungeon are a 5 Soulstone scheme runner that are dual keyword, Savage and Fey. So if you bring them, you can get a little bit of concealment out and run around that way. Personally, I think the Cyclops are amazing.
Oh, okay.
And that's because, one, they have the ability to put out more ice pillars with their actions, and then they have a bonus action for Frozen Runes. Once Frozen Rune succeeds, you get to pick one of 4 effects to happen to that that ice pillar. You can heal nearby friendly models, you can damage nearby enemy models, you can stagger nearby enemy models, or you can put out a scheme marker in base contact with the ice pillar. So we know now, as of Gaining Ground 0, the ice pillars aren't going to count for things like Search the Ruins because they themselves are marker terrain and won't count anymore. But you can still put an ice pillar next to another piece of terrain and then just put the scheme marker down next to it, touching both of them.
Any ability to be able to drop scheme markers at a distance is a huge ability.
Yeah. So this crew with that has the ability to both place schemes next to their ice pillars and wipe out enemy scheme markers next to the ice pillars.
That makes
so they
sense.
are great at controlling the area around those pillars.
So Patrick, this is sounding like one of those keywords where you've got a lot of synergies, right? Because you've got everything built around these ice markers. Things are different. Different things are affecting those ice markers. Do you see yourself bringing in out of keyword models or versatile models with this crew?
So one thing you'll definitely notice is they want to be either in something's face or they want stuff to come to them or to be in very specific spots, between ice pillars or near ice pillars.
Right.
So being able to control enemy movement is huge. So, Hinamatsu's lure is always a big thing. Baby Kate, if just for some crazy reason you wanted to bring him, you definitely could. He has a decent, very strong lure at stat 7.
Yeah.
But within keyword, they also have the new model Lisa or Lysa.
Lisa, yeah.
So they're very angry sorrows. They're dual keyworded with woes, but instead of being sorrows, they're rage based. And so one of their fun things is if they hit somebody, they can make them. You can control that model on a trigger to then attack something else, or whatever you want. So if you go up to, say, I don't know, a Peacekeeper, and you hit it with this trigger, it's only stat 4, but if you hit it with the trigger, you can
built in.
It is built in. That's right.
Yeah.
It will then turn around and just crush something else,
Nice.
which is just great. But the other thing that's nice about them is they're 4 stones and corporeal, so you don't have to worry about all these pillars going
right,
around.
yeah.
They can make more pillars off of course markers, and they have Bring It, which forces an enemy model to move their movement plus 2 inches towards the Alyssa. Now, it does get a swing on the Alyssa, but it's a 12-inch range, so just stay a little bit beyond that.
Sure.
Into, let's say, I don't know, Euripides' huge fist.
Yeah. Well, and a nice balance, right? So you've got a bunch of these big base models out there. Now you've got something that really doesn't have to think about that, right? They can move around that. They can impact that movement and synergize well within the group.
And they're only 4 stones. You're not going to get, they're not going to change the world, but they're nice.
Sure. So Sam, if my opponent's declared Euripides, what am I afraid of?
One of the things you're afraid of is definitely the last minion we haven't discussed, which is the Gigant.
Okay.
The Gigant is a 6-stone minion, and at 6 wounds, that's about average for what it does. However, it has an 8-inch gun that ignores friendly fire, and you can discard a card to ignore the need for line of sight and to ignore cover.
Wow, okay.
So it's a thrown boulder. You can basically lob a boulder over wherever you're going. And like we discussed, it has old ways, so you can discard to ignore the need for line of sight and to ignore cover. You're already ignoring friendly fire, and then you can just pick that card right back up for taking 1 point of damage.
Very nice.
One of the great things outside of their gun is they have a ram trigger on the melee attack. You can knock an enemy or a friendly. You can use this on anybody, but you have to hit them and spot this trigger. You can knock them into an ice pillar, and they will fall out of any other ice pillar on the field.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So if you're going against somebody like Raspy, who's made a bunch of her own pillars in her own backfield, you can knock the ice golem standing next to its own ice pillar into the ice pillar and then knock it out in a corner somewhere where it can't do anything.
Very interesting.
And just more ice pillar manipulation with them is just a little crazy as cave drawing. So if there's a heavy interact kind of situation, cave drawings is their bonus action that says if you're within 2 inches of this ice pillar, you can't interact.
That's a big deal.
And also on its trigger of a ram, it pops out of that ice pillar. So that's
Gotcha.
just more teleportation
Yep.
on this big 50 mil base that's just showing up in your face to punch you.
That's great. What's Euripides afraid of?
Euripides is afraid of massive amounts of terrain. They are all 50 millimeter base, and they do not have any way to deal with that. They're not unimpeded. They don't have teleportation outside of the Gigants and Euripides, and even both of them need specific triggers to get it.
So not only, the board itself might impact the ability to use Euripides and even impact whether you even bring Euripides or not, but there's a lot of keywords out there that are generating terrain that could potentially have a huge impact on those
Zip
large
would
bases.
make him very sad.
That makes sense. Marker removal, I would imagine, is another one he doesn't like.
Yes.
Yep. Marker removal, he also, like most Neverborn, but I think for his own reasons, doesn't like seeing guns.
Okay.
A lot of his keyword is on 50 mil bases. Euripides himself is size 4, and most of the other 50 mils are size 3.
Got it.
Even making their own ice pillars to gain cover behind. Cover is only so much against a really dedicated ranged attacker. And they're not going to be able to hide behind much on the field being so big.
Yeah. All right. That's Euripides.